Hi, this is Philbon, and this is my Karador Ghost Chieftain EDH deck. Alright, so right off the bat here, we're just going to go through the basic lands. I want to make a quick note though, I don't have a lot of the staples that a lot of people are going to be looking for in this deck. There's no Survival of the Fittest, there's no Sensei's Divining Top, there's no Birds of Paradise, there's none of that stuff, because I don't have the money for it. And frankly, EDH is more fun for me than it is like competitive. So I just have a lot of fun stuff in here that has cool interactions. I'm not necessarily looking for, you know, cards that cost $40 that I don't necessarily really want anyway. So yeah, that's just a quick note. Okay, on to the non-basics. We've got Ancient Ziggurat, which is great for color fixing with creatures, which I have a very large amount of. Mosswort Bridge is one of the better hideaway lands because its condition is very easily meetable. I'll have 10 power total of creatures out almost like all the time towards the later stages of the game, so it gets me a really easy spell. I have the 3 filter lands for my colors. I have Twilight Mire, Wooded Bastion, and Fetid Heath. Those are good for making sure I have the right colors when I need them. Tainted Wood, I'm looking into getting Tainted Field, or whatever the white-black one is, but for right now this one does a pretty solid job. It gives me 2 colors if I control a swamp, and I hopefully would. Nantuko Monastery is a good man land because it's an easily activated condition, and Threshold in this deck is something that I have almost all the time. Graypelt Refuge, color fixing and life gain. Hall of the Bandit Lord is probably a very underrated or overlooked card because you have to pay 3 life to add a colorless mana to your mana pool. But if that mana is spent on creatures, it gives them haste, and there aren't a lot of creatures in green, black, and blue, or green, black, and white that have haste. So this gives a lot of things that aren't supposed to attack on the first turn a pretty solid advantage. Krosan Verge gets you 2 lands, pretty solid fetch land. Meteor Crater, more mana fixing based on my permanents. Tectonic Edge for dealing with, you know, problem lands. Grand Colosseum, more mana fixing. It's a any color pain land. Pine Barrens. Reliquary Tower in case my hand gets over 7 and I want to keep a lot of it, so I don't have to pitch anything I don't want to. Stirring Wildwood, color fixing man land, and Sejiri Steppe, which can help me make a swingy situation out of a pretty clogged up board. So we'll get on to the creatures now. They're in ascending mana cost order, as are all the different spell types. Putrid Imp is one of my more favorite creatures that I first got. He's a 1/1 for 1, and you can discard a card to give him flying, and at Threshold he gets +1/+1 and can't block. So I can discard cards, discard creature cards with him to make Karador cost cheaper, and then he'll get a little bit of a bonus whenever I've discarded like a million of them. Kami of False Hope, one of my favorite cards and one of the most flavorful cards I've ever seen printed. I can sacrifice him to Fog, and I can bring him back very easily with Karador. So in decks that are trying to win with combat damage, he really makes a big difference. Thrull Surgeon. The whole focus of this deck was trying to look for creatures that did cool things, so I didn't have to necessarily waste creature slots with non-creature spells. So Thrull Surgeon acts as sort of a like a mini Mind Rot. It's just that I can also look at the player's hand. You can only do it as a sorcery, but he's easily recurable from the graveyard, and he's a good Skull Clamp target if I don't feel like making someone discard a card. Scourge Zoomer turns any card in my hand into a Festering Goblin. Most likely that would be another creature that I'll just bring back later. And Festering Goblins, again, are good Skull Clamp targets, and they can get rid of, you know, pesky little dudes like Birds of Paradise, or, you know, any little utility creatures that my opponents might be using. Patrol Hound is more discarding. He gains first strike whenever you do. He's a 2/2, so he's a pretty solid guy. Wild Mongrel, probably the most known of these kind of spells, where you discard a card and he gets a little bonus for it. He's great. Like I said before, I don't have a bird. I don't have a Birds of Paradise, and I'm not going to buy one. Augur of Skulls. You pay a black to regenerate him, so he can stick around and clog up the board. But if you sacrifice him, you can Mind Rot. Only activated during your upkeep, but it's still an easily recurable ability, and that's good for me. Uda's Prowler is a 3/1 for 2 with flying, which is pretty neat. And its discard ability to give it -2/-0 can be activated by any player. So it sort of gives my opponent some incentive to maybe discard a card, and if they pitch a creature, I can just grab it later with any of my reanimation spells. Wall of Omens is solid card draw on a solid body, easily recurable. Sakura-Tribe Elder, great mana fixing and mana acceleration, and it's recurable as a creature. Qasali Pridemage gets rid of problem artifacts and enchantments and can easily come back. Bog Witch is a spell shaper for Dark Rituals, which is a-okay by me. Urborg Siphon Mage is a big swingy card, especially in larger games where you're playing against like 4 other people. You can be gaining like 8 life a turn, and you pitch a creature, so you can just get it back with Karador later, or any of the other spells that you have. Aven Riftwatcher gains you a bunch of life when you keep having it die and then keep bringing it back. Yavimaya Elder, great card advantage. Stillmoon Cavalier, protection from white and black, gives him protection from a lot of good spot removal. Gives it protection from, Path to Exile, Condemn, Dismember, all that kind of stuff. And he's got a toolbox full of cool abilities. Slithery Stalker removes, exiles a green or white permanent when it enters the battlefield, or a white creature. So I've rarely come across a situation where he doesn't exile something. He's got Swamp Walk too, which makes him pretty cool. Shambling Shell, I've been trying to throw a little bit more Dredge in here. He's the only Dredge card in here currently. But he's got a self-sacrificing ability. He's a 3/1, so he's a Skull Clamp target. And pitching 3 creatures with Dredge, or like even 2, is really, really worth it when I do choose to activate his Dredge ability. Solemn Simulacrum is card advantage on legs. Master of the Wild Hunt gets you a free creature every turn, and he turns all those creatures into green removal, which is pretty cool for taking care of permanents that have protection from white and black, or black and red, or something like that. So he comes in fairly handy almost all the time. Wilt-Leaf Liege pumps the general and pumps any of the creatures that happen to get in her way. She's a 4/4 for 4 too, so that's not bad. Creakwood Liege also pumps the general and gets you a free creature every turn. Grotesque Hybrid is the first foil card I've ever owned, and also my favorite card ever printed, just based on that fact. But whenever he deals combat damage to a creature, he destroys it and it can't be regenerated, and I can discard a card, so I was like, oh man, he's totally going in here because he fits the theme and he's one of my favorite cards. Indrik Stomphowler is Naturalize, also with a 4/4 body on it. So he's probably one of the better artifact or enchantment removal spells, because he also has a 4/4 beast attached to it. If you're playing green, you probably want to play this guy. Corpse Connoisseur, he can get any creature in my deck and put it into my graveyard, which is kind of like putting it in my hand with Karador. So he can get me anything that I would need at that point in time, and then I can unearth him later or just bring him back from the graveyard. He's got a pretty solid body too, so he'll take something out with him. Lightwielder Paladin. This starts more of my beaters section. There's still going to be some utility creatures, but I don't want to have them be any more than 5, I think, because recurring them from the graveyard can be tough when they cost 6 and 7 each. So all my utility creatures are pretty much going to be 5 or lower. Lightwielder Paladin is pretty good for getting rid of problem stuff, and he's got First Strike. He's a pretty solid body. Acidic Slime, probably one of the last of my utility creatures. He's a Creeping Mold, +1 with Death Touch, which is always good. World Queller creates some fun shenanigans when getting rid of planeswalkers or one-of artifacts or permanents of that nature. he can help clear it of something that I can't get rid of. Deathbringer Liege, more general pump, and creature removal, creature tapping, stuff like that. Divinity of Pride is an 8/8 for 5, more often than not with flying and lifelink, so that's always scary to look at. Stuck in Bloodsucker, a 4/4 flyer that I can use to discard a card from my hand, make him a 6/6 in the middle of the turn. He costs 6, but he's cool, so why not? Terra Stomper, 6/6, 8/8s for 6 are things that I will never pass up. Avenger Zendikar creates incredibly swingy situations. He's absolutely awesome, and if you're playing green, why aren't you playing him? For Pete's sake. Krosan Tusker, probably my only utility creature that is costing like 6 or higher. He costs 7, but really the only thing you need to know about him is that he's a green divination. I have never cast him as a creature, and I will probably never cast him as a creature. Shealdred Whispering one acts like a second Debtor's Knell. Can help get rid of creatures on my opponent's side of the field, and has Swamp Walk, so she's always good. Plus I had a shiny version of her, so I was like, you're definitely going in. Changeling the Annex. If you get her on the first turn, she can be helpful. If you play her, she can be like positively annoying. But I don't think I'd put her in the same league as like Grand Arbiter Augustin IV or something like that, because it doesn't cost 2. It just costs an extra 1. Plated Slagworm. Don't touch my stuff. Lord of the Pit. Just a fun big beater to have, and I've never had a problem with sacrificing something for him. Avatar of Woe, ridiculous card. Just based on the creatures I'm putting in the graveyard alone, she'll never not cost 2 black whenever I cast her. And last creature, Scion of Darkness. He's just a big dude, big fun dude for getting spells out of creatures out of opponents' graveyards, and he's got Trample to boot. All right, on to the sorceries. As a music major, and having this card be something that does something that I like, I could not pass up Rites of Spring. If you don't get it, you don't get it. But this card is pretty awesome. Demonic Tutor is great. Zombify gets any creature back from my graveyard. Damnation, the Black Wrath of God, just as a board sweeper, keeps hairy situations under control. Wrath of God, the White Wrath of God, same thing. Harmonize draws 3 cards in green, couldn't really pass it up. Soul's Majesty, I've got pretty big dudes out there, so you know, if I throw this on a Plated Slagworm, I'm drawing 8 and completely refilling my hand at later stages of the game. Primal Command does a really cool toolbox of abilities. I've almost always used it as gain 7 life and search my library for a creature, but the other 2 could be useful in their own right as well. Beacon of Unrest, one of my favorite recursion cards. Phyrexian Rebirth, more board control, nets me a big old creature in the end too. Onto the instance, Path to Exile is just generic spot removal. Condemn, some of the best removal in the format, puts anything on the bottom of their library, and with 100 cards, if you hit their general or one of their key cards, this thing's going to do pretty well for that. Naturalize, Krosan Grip, can't respond to it, pretty good card. Mortify gets rid of creatures and enchantments. Enchantments, Rancor, awesome card, recurs itself from the graveyard, gives +2/+0 and trample, and only costs 1, so it's absolutely ridiculous. Zombie Infestation, I get to pitch 2 cards at a time, and then I net a creature from that. So I get to dump 2 creatures in my graveyard. The game that I used this in, Karador never cost above 3 mana. Phyrexian Arena, good card draw. The life gain is almost negligible in EDH. Attrition, I figure while I have a ton of creatures, I can just pay 1, get rid of 1 to recur it later, and then get rid of one of your creatures, so pretty neat card. Debtor's Knell, probably my favorite recursion card ever printed. It's so good, and it creates ridiculous situations where your opponent just can't keep up with your tempo, and you'll eventually blow them out, unless they destroy Debtor's Knell, but by that point, you've probably got enough of an advantage out of it that it doesn't matter. Last 4 are artifacts. I've got Skull Clamp to draw, inordinate amount of cards. Lightning Greaves, protect the general, give something that doesn't have haste, protect almost anything. Really good card. Darksteel Ingot for colorless and destructible mana fixing and mana acceleration. and Behemoth Sledge to give a big creature, make it even bigger, and then give it lifelink and trample for a big swingy situation. Thanks for watching CMDR Decks. Please subscribe and favorite.